Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Low-Code Café, episode 61. My name is Bogdan Litescu. I am the founder and CEO of Plantanet. And the main topic today, it's about, it's in a theme that you've seen over and over again. It's about how do you integrate other stuff? How do you integrate anything in Plantanet? And today we have a very nice JavaScript library. It's called Mermaid. And it's actually very cool, and I will let Radu show it to you in a bit. But before getting too far ahead, just a few words about this webinar, because I do see some new faces here. This is a weekly community event that we are doing. It's mostly technical, so we are showcasing features, we are showcasing the techniques to accomplish various requirements, and also the biggest chunk is about building something. So hands-on experience with Plantanet. And also we cover product updates, new feature, what's coming, and so on. The webinar is recorded, and then all past editions are available on our YouTube channel. I invite you to visit it, subscribe to it, and there's 60 hours of very good content, very good techniques on achieving all kinds of requirements, from integrating to mobile applications, low-code platform like we did for the past 3 editions, to building systems like we build a marketing systems, and to integrating with HubSpot. So all kinds of interesting content in there. The agenda for today, I will be giving you some news, some highlights about the upcoming releases, and afterwards I will give it to Dale Warner, our head of support, to give us some very interesting techniques that were circulated around the support channels. We'll then have some training updates, and finally we'll see the Mermaid in action with Radu, our head of training. There's multiple ways to engage during this webinar. Feel free to ask your questions. We love questions. We love to get into debates about anything in here. So there's the chat window, there's the Q&A window. So make sure to use it. Cool. So just to give you a brief update on what's coming with the product. So we changed a few days since last week. We've adjusted the private beta. We pushed it a few days. What we actually decided internally, that all releases will be done as part of this webinar. So including private beta and release dates will be done on Wednesdays during this webinar. So that's why we pushed the dates to Wednesdays. So we are still looking at Wednesday next week to go in private beta, and then on October 6th to do the public release. And then we've already started the planning 1.17. So work for 1.17 will start on October 4th. And then again, right now, as you might remember from last week, we are going for two-week iteration cycles, 2-week release cycle. So then our scheduled release date for private beta will be 20th of October, and then 27th for the public release. And in this 1.17, we focus on improving the entity model. So there's a lot of ideas that have circulated, some improvements that we want to have. We don't have yet the backlog ready. So now is the time, if you have any special feature requests regarding the entity model, maybe get into the campfire with us. Campfire, it's another event, another webinar we have on Fridays, and then we can discuss your feature requests, and we'll prioritize and put them in the backlog. So I invite you to come with any good ideas, that you have. Cool. So that's it. And then next week I'll be able to give you a better update on, and maybe even do a demo on the new private beta that's going to be available. Cool. So now let's bring it to Dale to give us the stories from the trenches.
Great. Hello. So a few things this morning. we got some feedback from the community. There's a feedback form associated with this, and I'll post the link to it here in a minute, as well as some other links on the chat. But we got some feedback that there was some interest in getting some questions answered. And I just want to encourage you, if you haven't, please join our campfire. That link will also be on there. But the campfire event on Friday mornings, Central Standard Time, 10 o'clock, is in a meeting format. So everybody can jump in. We can be very interactive in that setting. From the trenches, we try to pick things that come from our community, questions that users have had, and address them. So one thing that came up this week is a question about exporting selected records from a listing. And so I'm going to show you that, the techniques that are involved in that. It's pretty straightforward to display a grid of information and be able to export from that. And then one of the suggestions that came on the community, and this came from Ben, about how to do it in a dynamic fashion. And so we're going to demonstrate that as well. And I hope to get more in depth on that one in Low Code Campfire. I'm not going to cover coding on that, but just a little bit of show off about what we can do with Plankton app. So I've put together a listing of users on my demonstration system and added a couple of buttons. One is to export all in a CSV format. Another is to export all in an Excel format. And we also have the ability to pick particular users that we want to export as well. So let's see what that looks like. If we click export all in CSV, it creates a file for us, and the Excel comes up, and it's a CSV file. We can see that. And if I format this, I'm going to widen out these columns, but these are the same columns that are displayed in our grid. So it matches exactly to that. I'm not going to save that. The export to Excel does the same thing, but it comes in an XLSX format. And so we have the same set of grids. And so we can go either way, Excel or CSV. And then finally, this was the real question that the user had, was if we pick a couple of users out, we select them, we could select any number. I'll pick 3, numbers 6, 29, and 30. But we have another button that appears when we have selected records. We hit export selected to Excel, and we get an output. And when we open that up, we can see just the 3 users that we've picked out. And it's a little different format, the different columns, and I'll show you how and why that becomes possible. So let's dig into, and I'm not going to build it live today, so no chance of me making a mistake, at least very little chance of me making a mistake. I'm just going to show you how it's set up. So if we go into the user's export, and here we have our data source. I'll just cover that quickly. We have a data source that is the users table, and we've specified the user's ID, and then added some fields to the data listing. So we have user ID, name, first name, last name, email, display, and the IP address. We could add more, and if we were, that'll be fun. Let's add one more thing. We will add the when the created on date to this. So this will just show that the export will change based on what was added, what's in this, what's displayed on the grid. So let's take a look at our buttons. We don't have any item buttons, but we have grid buttons. And the first one is this export all CSV. And the only thing I really changed is I like to select an icon. So I picked the export icon. You can just click change and pick a different icon. But then within that, I've only added just 2 actions, and I've added them here in the final actions. So the 2 steps that it takes, one we say serialize to CSV, and the other is we use a redirected to URL to cause the download to happen. So the serialize to CSV, let's see how it's set up. I don't have to pick very much at all. I did pick include all fields because I want everything output. If I wanted less than everything, I could uncheck that, and then you'd have to specify which fields we want. And so we would have to add the fields. But I'm going to say include all fields. The storage location, we're going to send this serialization to a file. We could pick encoding if we want to, but I'm picking, it's giving me a list of folders on my site assets, and I'm going to pick that I wanted to go to a temp folder. I created a temporary folder to hold these exports so that it's easy to delete all the ones that get created. The pattern is the name of the file name. We don't have to provide this, but I called it export CSV. So when you click the button, it's going to say export CSV is the file name. And we have a choice here of overwrite or rename. So by saying overwrite, it'll create the same file every time. Sometimes if you have a lot of users or different users hitting this button, you might say that you do a rename and it'll automatically add a unique identifier to the end of the file name that gets created. So everybody gets their own file name. And then we pick where do we store this thing? And I've given it a name, a token name of relative URL. It's the same, it's just, it doesn't matter what we call it, but we're going to use this in the next step. So the file is created and the relative URL to that is stored in a variable called relative URL. Then I'm going to use the second step here, redirect to URL. This is where I trigger the download. So I say that it is, I use that same relative URL, but with brackets around it. So the URL is where people get directed to. And then we click the force download button. And that's it. So with that set up, and I'm just going to refresh here. I don't remember if I saved. See, I can make a mistake even though it's very simple. I intended to add this created on date so that we have it. And so we'll save and refresh. So now created on date is part of our data, and we hit export all CSV, the one we just looked at. And when we open it up, we now have our fields, and the field that we added, all the fields that we added to the grid are now in the output. So the Excel version of this is very much the same. It's the same two-step. We'll cover it very quickly. So it's the export all Excel. We still have an icon. We have two steps, except this time we do the same thing, but we use the serialize to Excel from entity list action. And otherwise it's set up the same way. And we still have, it's putting its output to a relative URL. And so we force download. So that's how that one works. It's exactly the same setup as the CSV version. Well, let's go with the interesting one. How do I get out just the ones I want? So for example, if I pick 4 different things, I hit export to Excel and I get 4 different outputs. How does that work? I'm sorry, jumping the wrong one. The way that we get that to happen is in the button, we are going to add a couple of more actions. We are going to do some per item actions, and I'm only going to talk about one of these here. I made it a little bit flexible, but we're going to talk about just, you only need one action, and then we're going to serialize and redirect as we did with the other ones. So the action that we're going to do, and this is going to happen this is happening in the per item action. So every item that was selected, this is going to happen for that item. And I am doing this to say, I am sending it to an entity called export, and I'm sending 3 properties. So I'm going to create 3 different columns in the output, the user ID, and in that I'm going to send the user ID from the data source. So user ID, username, email. These come from the columns that are in the grid. Username, user ID, display name, email. So we've selected these 3, and that's going into an entity named export. and then ignore this one. This one's conditional out. So then we do serialize to Excel, and the only difference here is that we say that we're using the export entity name, the one that we named here, appears here, and we are including all the fields. Otherwise, the same setup that we used in the other ones that I've showed you, and we redirect to URL. And the good news is, if Radu's let me know that if he has a few minutes, he has even an easier way to do this, and he might show that to you.
Yes, let me see. There's an entity, which is true. It's not documented, and I found about it a few years ago. But the action grid is providing already an entity for all the selected items.
Okay.
The one that I've pasted in the chat. So you can use basically the same setup that you used for the other two buttons, but you need to specify this entity instead of leaving it empty, and you're going to achieve the same behavior. Only the selected items are going to get exported.
Okay, so I'm not going to go off into demo land, but I will make sure that that information is on the posted on the recording. So thanks for that feedback. So then the one more thing, the bonus feature I wanted to show you today, and then we'll turn it over to Radu for the Mermaid demonstration, is that the solution suggested by Ben Santiago regarding using dynamic fields. So I have a form that says, what fields do I want to display? And let's say I want to do first name and last name. I'm going to submit this. I've built a dynamic grid that always shows the user ID, but shows first name and last name according to what I've selected. If I wanted to just show email, I can do that. And so now the grid shows user ID and email. And if we were to export from that, that's what it's going to export as well. So I export and take a look, and all I get is user ID and email. And just for fun, we'll pick all of them. And so we get our grid filled up. So this dynamic grid technique, a little bit more involved, but it's a very interesting one, and it requires some responsibility on the side of the developer, but you can get some great flexibility out of it. So that's a fun solution, and we'll talk about that more on Friday. So that is from the trenches today, and I am going to turn it over to Mr. Radu.
All right, thank you. Give me a second to start sharing my screen. Where's the, okay, here we go. And not this one, this one. Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, you're good.
Perfect. All right, so first of all, before we jump into the demo, I want everyone to know that the documentation, the plant and app documentation, will now contain all the actions that the product can provide. In this time we worked on a automation of the documentation. It's basically we are trying to generate the actions. Let's say, I don't know, flow. We are trying to generate documentation based on the configurations, the actions that you're seeing into the product. So we now have an automatic system that generates those, and if anything changes from action to action, at least those are going to be included in the most recent documentation. And also I want to let you know that some of them, for example, some of the most common actions were already modified by the plant and app team to include more and more information about how to use them and how to not use them, and all the information that you should need. And also in the end, it also includes examples. But those examples can be copied and imported. Those are actions that are exported for you, and we put them here. Those actions you can copy and paste them into the import action of any component that Plant and App has, and you can run those queries individually to have an idea of how the actions should be set up. Not all of them, but we are working to start providing those examples and complex documentation to the majority of the actions. Just to give you an idea, right now we have roughly around 300 actions available in the product. So it's going to take a while until we can go through all of them and provide the proper documentation. But at least for now, you can get a glimpse of an idea of what actions are available into the system, and also the integrations are here. Everything that's available or installable through the add-ons of Plant and App should be here. All right. If you're interested, I think it's also how to running examples. So if you are wondering how to run the examples from that you find into the actions, we have a post here exactly with how to import them into the module and how to execute those actions. Cool. Let me close this one. All right. So for today, a few episodes ago, we did a demonstration with the help of our partner KPMG of a platform that was around contract management, and that platform that we built together was having an internal approval workflow system. The idea was that each individual contract that was added to the system would go to a process of being approved by different key people into the company until that it was getting either validated or rejected. Now, after a while working on that, I was thinking, hey, but look, there can be very complex workflow, approval flows that you can have in a company. And is there a way to, visualize them? Even, the functionality is there and people are getting everywhere, but there are some key people in companies that want to have an overview of exactly how a process is going. So at that point, after a bit of research, I came over Mermaid JS, a library that has, I code markdown-ish syntax for generating some of the examples that you are seeing right now. And what I'm interested in showing you today is this kind of flow chart here that we can generate basically by generating the syntax that you're seeing here on the right side. This is a live editor, so if you want to experiment with the library itself, you can just go to mermaid.live and you'll be able to do that. Now, before we get into how to use the Mermaid application, what I would like to do first in this webinar is to try to set up some entities that will match the database that we need to create an approval flow. So the idea will be that to achieve something similar to this, we should envision that each purple block is a state of a process. So it's where a process can be, it's getting worked on or can get stuck on and stuff like that, and the gray areas on the arrows are going to be the actions to decide when and how a process go, for example, for Christmas to go shopping. So what do I need? I need to get money to go shopping for Christmas, and similar to that. What I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to simulate a flow of how or not we, but basically an IT company handles a new ticket into their system and try to generate a diagram for that process, with including having the steps that the ticket can go through the process can be variable, and you can adjust them, and after that generate the diagram. So that being said, I'll start by going into configuration, and I'm gonna go and start and define first of all an entity which is called state or states. let's see, let's go to the entity and let's do it. I'm gonna go and say, create a new namespace for this, and I'm gonna see mermaid. Oops, mermaid. All right. Mermaid JS demo. All right. Save and change. Select this. First of all, I'm gonna want to go and define this entity. It's not gonna have something really complicated for the moment. The only property that's I'm gonna add is gonna be the name, but this can be extended in the extended to achieve more and more with Mermaid JS. But just for this example, I'm just gonna add the name of the state, and I'm gonna say save. Now let's have a look and define. Let's see. Let's define also maybe the flow of the steps. Basically, when I'm saying the flow, I'm just defining where are those arrows going to be drawn. So the idea it will be that I'm going to go and create another entity which I'm going to call flow, and flows. I'm going to give them a name. Or a name, it's okay. And I'm gonna say I'm gonna have two properties, from and to. The idea it will be that from and to are gonna be of a type of a state. So basically, I'm just defining from which state it can move with which state, and what's gonna be the let's say basic. Maybe we can say action. What's gonna be the action to move from a state to a state? And now that we have those two, entities defined at the moment, when I'm gonna start adding information to the system, maybe it's gonna start making a little bit more sense. First of all, let's add some states and something that I'm having in mind right now. Let's say, so the first state when we have a new ticket into the system is that we actually receive this new ticket. So we have a state which is called new ticket. Now what are the actors, let's say, when treating with a new ticket? So are gonna be junior developers, middle developers, senior developers, and maybe if we are talking from a technical perspective, we have the CTO involved here. So those can also be some nodes, some states that a ticket can go through. So let's say junior developer, middle developer. Oops, what did I do wrong? Middle and senior developer. Let's add the CTO here. And the last state a ticket can go through, I'm assuming, gonna be, let's say, done. And maybe we can also add delivered or added, or I don't know. Delivered. All right, so those are going to be the states that a ticket can go. And let's now define let's try to define the flow. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to have to do an exercise of imagination until we get to actually generate the mermaid diagram. So the idea will be something like this. So first of all, we are going to have, let's say, let's say an easy ticket can go from a state of new ticket to a junior developer. So this is an easy ticket. So the action to be this is considered an easy ticket. So it can go from the status of a new ticket to a junior developer. At the same time, we can have a medium ticket, and this will go from a new ticket to a middle developer. And after that, we can have a hard ticket, and that will go directly from a new ticket to a senior developer. I'm not gonna bore you with doing the whole design. I'm just gonna keep those three for the moment. we are going to move to generating the mermaid, and after that we can expand on doing the diagram. So that the idea it will be that from one of the states, which is called new tickets, I will have 3 branches. So at that point, I'm going to have similar to the bottom part of here. So I'm going to have a new ticket, and based on if it's an easy ticket, a medium ticket, or a hard ticket, it's going to go to the state of each individual developer, either a junior, a middle, or a senior developer. Now, to generate, what we'll need now to happen is that we'll need to generate this this syntax here, and to do that, the idea is that we can generate the idea will be that here we can generate directly we can do it from a SQL query. The idea will be that we just need to concatenate some strings, and we can generate this syntax, and we can add this this syntax. We can generate a token, and then we can use this token to actually generate the whole diagram. So first of all, we can ignore line number 1, but from here, what we can do is to try to generate the syntax that we are seeing here. So the idea it will be to transform this flow here to something similar, not something similar, but something that we are having right here. And the way to do this is very simple. The first thing that we want to do is go to the configuration page, and under the configuration, we're going to start a new workflow. This workflow that we're going to create, we're going to call, let's add it to the Mermaid namespace, and let's call it generate Mermaid flow. And this is going to generate the syntax that we need. Let's add the description to be the same. The first thing that we're going to do is to run we will like to run a SQL query, right? So the SQL query will try to generate that script that we are looking for. Because it's going to be a little bit hard for me to do it right here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to end the workflow, and I'm going to leave the SQL query empty for the moment. I'm just going to click save, and I'm going to move. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go under general settings. I'm going to enable the SQL console. I'm going to click save, and now in the menu, I'm going to have another item which is called SQL console, and now I can do direct queries into the tables that were created by the entities that I did earlier. So what I'm interested in is, for the moment, I'm just going to say select everything from app.flow. And I'm just going to get our 3 steps that I have here. And because I'm interested in displaying exactly the names of the steps, not only 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, and so on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to I will have to inner join the state table twice, one for the from column and once for the to column. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to inner join the app.state, and I'm just going to say this. I'm going to put an alias of from on f from.id equals the fl dot. I'm going to use the square brackets because from is a keyword here. And I'm going to also do the inner join of app.state to on 2.id equals on fl.to. And this is going to provide me with this query is going to inner join, and I'm going to know that the new ticket needs to go to the junior developer, the new ticket can go to the middle developer, and the new ticket can go to the senior developer. All right, so now that I have all this information, what I need to do right now is to actually generate I will actually need to generate the syntax for each individual line that will match the syntax of Mermaid JS. So let's see. First of all, we're going to have to choose the from state. The from state, and we're gonna have to give them a unique ID. After some testing, I found out that even numbers can work as individual IDs. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the ID of the state instead of having ABC. I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's start doing some concatenation of the strings. This is gonna get a little bit long after a few tests, but it's gonna be really interesting in the end. So the idea will be that I will need from.id, and I will need to concatenate that with some square brackets or something like this. And here I'm gonna have the f dot name, and see. Let's see if I run the query. All right, so I need to cast, because I'm concatenating strings. The the ID is an integer, so I need to cast this as a varchar char of let's say 5 should be enough in this situation. Let's see. So now I have one new ticket, one new ticket, one new ticket. So this will kind of match the first part of the syntax. Now I need to put in the arrow and the action of the flow. So continuing on that one. So I need to, after the square bracket, I will need to put the arrow. Then I will need to put the square bracket, and between the square bracket, the pipes, sorry, between the pipes, I'm gonna need to put the action, and the action. I know the action that I have from the flow table, so I can just go and concatenate the flow dot action, and I can also concatenate the end pipe. So now if I run the query, I have from new ticket, because arrow, to new ticket, and I have easy ticket, medium ticket, and hard ticket. So we are getting close to ending our each individual line. So in the end, we're gonna have to put the two state that we want to go into. So I'm just gonna go and say, let's do the same thing here. Because I'm just gonna copy this part really quickly here. I'm gonna say this, I need the two ID and the two name. And if I run the query, I did something wrong. Custom plus, and I think I'm missing a comma. So now maybe we should also put a space here, something like this. And now what we achieved basically is that we have those 3 lines here. And if I want to test, I can copy those and I can add them here. And as you can see now, I just generated my personal graph by using this syntax. So now I have a new ticket, and if it's an easy ticket, it's gonna go to a junior. If it's a medium ticket, it's gonna go to a middle developer. If it's a senior, it's gonna go to a senior developer. So that's what I generated. The trick here is that we have stored this kind of information in this particular flow by just saying which is the action, which is the state, and what state it can go to, depending on just creating the links between. All right, so we have the, let's say we have the query. We have the query right now. Let's take I think it's not done yet. Excuse me. What will need to happen is that I will not need individual lines for this one. I will need to have a single response. From this query. So I'm gonna need to do something called a string aggregation, which is a function that will help me to concatenate those results to be a single as a single column. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna say that I want to concatenate it as a chart 10 plus char 13. This is the \r\n that we are identifying. So this is like ASCII codes that I'm doing. And now if I run the query, I'm just gonna get, I think this is here, it's a CSS problem. Those should be on different lines because of that. But in the end, this is gonna generate correctly. Now, if I copy this query that I have right now, I can, I can go into the workflow that I created earlier. And I can paste the query that I worked on in the SQL query here, and I'm just gonna say diagram data as the store result. I'm just gonna click save, and I'm gonna go and declare an output parameter, and I'm say diagram data is equal with the output of the diagram data. And I'm gonna click save and test, and I'm gonna click run, and I'm getting these results. I'm getting these results here. All right, now. I said in the start that I'm looking to generate the token not a workflow. So now to do that, I will need to move to the tokens, create a new token, and let's say that I'm gonna name the namespace Mermaid as well. I'm gonna say create. I'm gonna go and create a new token. I'm gonna say diagram data. I'm gonna go to the definition and choose to run a workflow. The workflow that I'm looking for is the only workflow that I have right now. It's generate mermaid, and the output field is just gonna be the only output field that this workflow has. And if I click save and test, I'm gonna see that I'm receiving each individual state on a different line. And I think I'm generating. I think I know what's the problem. I think I'm having a new line. Two extra new lines here. So I think I did a small mistake in the query that I've added here. I think the order was char 13, char 10. I'm sorry. Those are /r/n, save and test. Let's say this is running. Let's go back to the tokens, find the token, let's run the token again. And this is okay. So we don't have no extra lines right now. All right, let's try to utilize this inside Plantain app, not in the online viewer. So let's go to flows. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna make space on half of the screen for the actual drawing. So let's see, where can we find some, maybe, yeah, we can put this. We can readjust this page a little bit. So we have a little bit of free space here on the right. And I'm just gonna go and add a form to the empty space. All right, I can close this for the moment. And inside the documentation, inside of the Mermaid JS documentation, you're gonna find something called API usage, and the API usage is gonna provide you with how to install it through the npm, but also how to utilize it as a standalone JS. So the trick will be that first of all we need to import the JS on the page, so Mermaid will work actually. So what I'm gonna do is copy this URL, go back to Plantain app, and click on Manage Form. Now on the manage form, I'm gonna click start on blank form. I'm just gonna give it a name first of all. I'm gonna call it diagram. And on the page load events, I'm gonna search for load static, and I'm gonna choose load static files. And I want to load JavaScript file. So I'm gonna paste the URL here. I'm just gonna give it a name, let's say MGS for Mermaid JS. All right, and I'm just gonna click on save for the moment. So that's how we import it. We go through the first step of that. Now we are looking that we are looking to have a div class where we are gonna put our code that we are generating. So I'm just gonna copy that for the moment. I'm gonna go to the form again. I'm gonna go and say, hey, let's add a static text. Paste that in, and let's say this is the diagram. And also we need to add the initialization script from a test that I've did earlier today. I don't know why, but the syntax seems to be not proper to work with Plantain app. So I came up with a different initialization scripts for this. It's similar to what you're seeing. I'm just gonna add it below the HTML that you are seeing. So it's mermaid.api.initialize, and this is a security level that I found it useful for what I'm planning to do. And this should be enough to render this basic example from A to B, B to C, the example that they were giving to. So I'm just gonna click save right now, and I'm gonna click back. Let's why is it not? All right, so it is working. So now I'm seeing this graphic. graphic on the right side. The trick here, it will be that I would like right now to have my own, I would like to have my own graphic depending on the flow that I'm generating on the left side. So what I need to do here, and I will go into the diagram form that I was creating, and I'm gonna go to the configuration and choose to. I'm gonna get this token that is generating my own logic here based on the flow. And instead of having those default items here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna paste this to be the actual content from inside my system. I'm gonna click save. I'm gonna refresh the page. Come on. All right. So now I'm getting the flow. Now I'm getting the flow from left to right. I think also into the example they have top down, and this is graph top down, and we also have left to right. Because of the space, I'm just gonna go top down in my example also, so we can make it to go down. So let's go back to the diagram and change this parameter really quickly. Okay, let's refresh again, and we should have it. Sometimes it's not work. I didn't figure out why and when, but sometimes it's not loading properly. All right, so we have the new ticket. What I would like to do right now is whenever I add a new step into the flow, I want to refresh this grid so I can have a live preview of what's happening. So what I'm really quickly gonna do, I'm gonna go to the form of adding and editing, and I'm gonna add a new action between the one that are already existing to initialize action form and stop continue execution, sorry. And also whenever I add a new step, I would like to refresh I want to reinitialize the diagram so we get a new view, and the same thing, and I can export this action really quickly. The same thing I would like to do to the update button. So in the update button, I'm gonna import this action and add it again. Why is there oh, okay, maybe, well, it doesn't matter. Or let's put it also here. Oh, okay. Let me refresh the page. All right, so remember, let me open at the same time. We have the state. So what can happen with the ticket? So if a junior developer doesn't know how to fix, for example, a ticket, maybe he wants to escalate to the middle developer. So let's add this node here. So escalate from the junior developer to the middle developer. Oh, come on. All right. So we have a new ticket. Either if the ticket is a medium ticket, it can go directly to the middle developer. Otherwise, if it needs a ticket, the junior developer can escalate it to the middle developer and can continue this flow. If even the escalate, we can say, hey, the middle developer can go to the senior developer in case that he doesn't know how to do it. So the new ticket can go to a junior, either, see, so it's going from the new to the junior to the middle, and the middle to the senior. Let me see if I can do something different here. I think I need to, not this one, the diagram one. Let me increase a little bit the timeout of initializing the script, because I think that may be the problem. No, it's just not helping me. All right, so what can the senior developer do? Well, the senior developer, can it escalate it? No, let's say either those three people, whenever the ticket is coming through, they can go into a state of done. So let's say it's the bug, the issue, the ticket, let's say it's fixed, so they can go into a done state. And the junior can go into a done state, and the fixed also, I'm gonna, all right, I can go into the done. And another fixed option will be for the senior to go to done. Something like this. Let me refresh really quickly the page to see the actual diagram. So something something like this can be the flow of the diagram. So you can just start adding nodes, and the diagram is gonna generate. Sadly, I don't know why it's not helping me to refresh. I need to refresh the page once in a while, but I'm gonna figure out and come up with a solution for next time. So that can be the option. Maybe we can even go from I don't know, code review from done to the CTO, let's say, and refresh the page and the code review. And I think we had different states, so we can go nuts. Maybe the CTO can code review, can publish it back depending on who was the owner and so on. So we can go nuts with developing this kind of diagram. Something that I want to add in the end, and I really want to make this clear. I copied this code from Stack Overflow, to be honest. But the idea to be that these images that you are seeing here, those are SVGs, and this file format can be exported directly from the browser. So if I go inside the diagram and create a button, for example, I can add a button, and I can say export SVG. And we don't need any actions. Well, what we can do, we can just paste a piece of code directly into the on click on change, and it's gonna pull the SVG and do a XML serialization from what I understood, and generate the content needed to export SVG file. Let me, maybe for people that are gonna watch this on YouTube, I should give them a few seconds with the full screen so they can see the code here. And I'm gonna make this back, and I'm gonna click. Not yet. Let me make the button a successful button. Let me put it on the center, and let me, make in the center. Go into the layout, make it centered here, just to give it a nice look and feel. Let me refresh this really quickly.
So I see you have that refresh bug, Radu, but the reality, the amazing thing is you're doing data on the left, you're getting a diagram on the right. You've done the hard work. The other is a small thing.
Thank you very much, Dan. And yes, you can click the export SVG, and you're gonna get the file, and this can be exported and viewed in the browser if you want to share it with someone. Yeah, so that's kind of the demo that I had for today. If you have questions, I'm open to answer those.
In taking a quick look at Mermaid, I can see it will do a ton of things. I actually used the Mermaid Live to generate the invitation email that went out to this, so that you could see kind of where we're going. But so just out of curiosity, in case anybody is typing a question, I'm wondering, so we actually have clients that are using this to document processes.
Yes. There were actually some requirements that they would, when bidding on some projects, there were some requirements that they have to attach their processes in case of emergency action. And while they had those in different systems, they would like to actually provide an image exactly of the process, to not just write pages and pages of describing the process, of how it's a picture is 1,000 words.
Absolutely. And you could see that it would take, if you didn't use something like Mermaid, it would take a lot of effort to translate. I mean, I'm assuming you need the data to make the program work right, and you need the image so that we can visualize it. So, okay, no open questions. I hope you guys got some value out of that. Is there any final thoughts you got for us, Radu? And I see Bogdan has jumped in.
I'm gonna let my final words for Bogdan.
What I also like about this library is the nature language that changes to visualization. Because I think this is a trend that we are seeing more and more. And it's something that also Chad touched last week with the Open AI Codex initiative, like changing the natural language to some working software, So I think Mermaid is also maybe not as ambitious as OpenAI yet, of course, but it's a good example of simplifying, having natural language change to something. Of course, we mask the natural language behind the scenes here, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to even expose it to people. Cool. I do see a question in the chat.
Yes, and I think I can answer that. So if you had tickets attached, you would be able to see a count of each state. Yeah, definitely. The idea will be that even if you have a real the idea will be that on these kind of flows you can even attach existing functionality, and you can even mark where the process is in some different situations. And also, if you are looking to see how many tickets are in different states, basically, if the statuses of the tickets are those states that I've defined, and at that point you don't even need the states entity, you can use the status entity of the ticket, then definitely you can know exactly where's the bottleneck, let's say, in some situation, exactly how many tickets are in each state. Could the link be in the description? Yes. I think somewhere in the documentation of Mermaid, each individual, even the blocks and the text can support the clicking on them and redirecting to different URLs. Not sure where, but I definitely found it when researching this. There's a documentation to specify URLs, so you can click this. And the good part is that even the exports are gonna be clickable. So even the SVGs that you export can be clickable. So if you want to share to someone a process, but the details are under URL, you can share that with those people.
Very good. Well, thanks for expanding our horizon on that point. And yes, we agree. Very cool.
Thank you, Jim. Yes. Yeah. So, thank you.
So, if there are no more questions, I think I really appreciate Dale and Radu for putting this in place. Thanks everyone for being here. If you have any feedback, we'd appreciate hearing it via the feedback form or directly via email. Also, if you have other JavaScript libraries that you'd want to see integrated with Plant an App, we take any challenge. So again, thanks all for being here, and see you again next week, same day, same hour. Bye, everyone.